Good day. It's exactly 6 p.m. here in Cairo. Time for Channel 2 English News. President Fattah al-Sisi meets with the Suez Canal Authority's chief, South Red Sea Arsenal Company's chairman. President Fattah al-Sisi meets with African Development Bank Group's president. And Israeli attacks killed 16 people in Gaza despite Hamas' statement of a release of U.S.-Israeli soldier. President Fattah al-Sisi on Monday held a meeting with the Suez Canal Authority's Chief Lieutenant Admiral Osama Rabia and the chairman of the South Red Sea Arsenal Company. Presidential spokesman said the president was briefed on Suez Canal navigation updates and the authorities' efforts to maintain current levels of maritime services, complete projects to upgrade the waterways navigation route and add new services despite ongoing international and regional tensions. The meeting probed the implementation of upgrade project at the Suez Canal's southern sector. The project entered full operation in February 2025. It also noted the completion of Ismailia Clean Water Station that generate a total of 180,000 cubic meters. The spokesman said the meeting also dealt with efforts to revamp the maritime fleet of the Suez Canal Authority in order to cope with increasing growth at global trade. President Fattah al-Sisi on Monday met with President of the African Development Bank Group, Akinwumi Adesina, over Egypt's cooperation with the bank across different fields. The meeting was attended by Minister of Planning, Economic Development and International Cooperation, Rania al-Mashot. Presidential spokesman said the President expressed Egypt's appreciation of the African Bank's present efforts to enhance the bank's role in offering finances for African development over his 10-year mandate. The president also asserted Egypt's continuous support to the African Development Bank. For his part, ADB's president hailed Egypt's role in boosting the bank's efforts in serving African development. The meeting asserted the importance of promoting cooperation between Egypt and the bank in fields of renewable energy and infrastructure, as well as in boosting the private sector's role, achieving development, upgrading manufacturing capabilities, providing job opportunities and ensuring food and water security. Egypt and Qatar welcomed the announcement by Hamas Palestinian group over the release of Israeli U.S. soldier held as captive in Gaza. This came over a phone call between Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati and Qatar's Prime Minister Mohammed Abdulrahman الثاني, who is also the Qatari Foreign Minister. The two ministers also probed steps needed to implement Arab Islamic Plan for Gaza reconstruction that was endorsed in the Arab Summit in Cairo on the 4th of March. The Egyptian and Qatari top diplomats also discussed the preparation for Cairo International Conference on Gaza reconstruction. The Yazidin al-Qassam brigades, the armed wing of the Palestinian Hamas movement, said it would release on Monday U.S.-Israeli soldier Idan Alexandra, who was taken as captive by the group in October 2023. The spokesman for Hamas armed wing, Abu Ubaida, said in a statement that on the Telegram messaging app that the group decided to release the soldier today. The release comes ahead of U.S. President Donald Trump's visit to the Gulf. Trump, who is set to arrive on Tuesday on his first official foreign trip, said Sunday that the planned release is a step to put an end to this very brutal war and return all living hostages and remains to their loved ones. And Palestinian witnesses in Gaza said that there had been calm since midday with no sound of Israeli drones or warplanes. Earlier, a Hamas source said that Israel would pause its aggression in Gaza to create a safe corridor for the transfer and handover of Alexander. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there would be no ceasefire in exchange for the release of the hostages, but he later said he had instructed negotiating team to head to Qatar on Tuesday to discuss the release of hostages. Despite the release of at least 16 Palestinian civilians, including children and women, were killed in Israeli attacks on school housing displaced civilians early on Monday. Gaza health authorities said at least 5 children and 4 women were among those killed in the strike on Fatma bint Asad school in Jabaliya area in northern Gaza. The health ministry said that at least 2,749 people have been killed since Israel resumed its campaign in March 17th, bringing the overall death toll since the war broke out to 52,862. And the Global Hunger Monitor said on Monday that the entire population of Gaza faces a critical risk of famine, with 500,000 of them facing starvation as Israeli blockade offered that these negotiations lead to closing points of view to decrease escalation and unrest, in addition to supporting security and stability in the region. Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan hailed Monday's decision by the Kurdish militant PKK to disarm and disband, saying it was a historic milestone for regional peace and security. Fidan told a joint press conference with his Jordanian and Syrian counterparts that the decision is a historic and important decision, especially in terms of permanent peace and stability prevailing in the region. PKK Congress held last week in northern Iraq, where the group is based, decided to dissolve the party's organizational structure and end the armed struggle in response to February call to disband from its jailed leader Abdullah Öcalan. The military operations chiefs of India and Pakistan spoke by phone on Monday as New Delhi reopened airports following a ceasefire that posed days of intense fighting last week. Indian media reported that the talks focused on the ceasefire, adding that curbs imposed by the countries on each other remained in place, including suspension of trade and closure of their borders. Details in the coming report.
The Indian Army said India and Pakistan have delayed until Monday evening talks between their military operations chiefs to discuss the next steps after a ceasefire, as New Delhi reopened airports and shares rose in the nuclear-armed rivals. There were no reports of explosions or projectiles overnight, with the Indian Army saying Sunday was the first peaceful night in recent days along their border, and although some schools remain closed. Saturday's ceasefire, announced by U.S. President Donald Trump, followed 4 days of intense firing between the two sides and diplomacy and pressure from Washington. India and Pakistan both rule part of the Himalaya region of Kashmir, but claim it is in full. A top Indian Army officer said India's military sent a hotline message to Pakistan on Sunday about what is called its neighbor's ceasefire violations the previous day, flagging New Delhi's intent to respond to further such incidents. A spokesman for Pakistan's military denied any violations. The Indian Army said both sides' Director Generals of military operations would speak by telephone in the evening, a delay from an initial timing of noon, but gave no reason. Pakistan's military media wing didn't immediately respond to a request for comment on the talks. On Monday, India reopened 32 airports it had shut down during the clashes, with the Airports Authority of India saying in a statement they were available for civil operations. Pakistan had reopened its airspace on Saturday. The arch rivals had targeted each other's military installations with missiles and drones, killing dozens of civilians as relations turned sour after India blamed Pakistan for an attack that killed 26 tourists. Pakistan denies the accusations and has called for a neutral investigation. India said it launched strikes on 9 terrorists' infrastructure sites in Pakistan and Pakistani Kashmir on Wednesday, but Islamabad has said those were civilian sites.
Welcome back. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli said that the government made a notable progress over the past years in the digital transformation file, whether in the services provided to citizens or companies coping with the immense global technological advancement. The Prime Minister made the remarks in a meeting with Minister of Communications and Information Technology Amr Talat, where he was briefed on Communication Ministry's action files, pointing out that the government is also working on a number of digital services and techniques which are set to be launched soon. And Egypt's Egypt's bourse closed in fluctuation today amid purchases by local and Arab corporations and local and foreign investors against sell-offs by foreign corporations and Arab investors. The market capital of listed companies added 7 billion Egyptian pounds, crossing 2.2 trillion pounds at the end of transactions. The benchmark index EGX 30 rose 0.5% above the 31,577-point mark. The equal weight indices EGX 70 fell 0.2% and EGX 100 surged 0.4%. And the United States and China today agreed to drastically reduce tit for tat tariffs for 90 days, de-escalating a trade war that raised fears of global economic downturn after their first talks since U.S. President Donald Trump launched his trade war last month. The world's two biggest economies also agreed to continue negotiations. Trump's fresh duties on many imports from China came up to 145% compared to 10% for other countries. Beijing had hit back with duties of 125% on U.S. goods. Welcome back, and moving to sports news. Barcelona mounted a spectacular comeback to beat Real Madrid 4-3 in La Liga yesterday and move to the brink of the title after overcoming a hat-trick from Kylian Mbappé. The France striker threatened to hold Madrid back into the title race by Rafael double from goals from Yamin Yamal and Eric Goch gave Barcelona a 7-point lead on the reigning champions with 3 matches remaining. Real Madrid are set to finish the season without a major trophy. And Arsenal and Newcastle set up a Premier League showdown next weekend, and the race for the remaining Champions League spots intensified yesterday. Arsenal rallied from 2 goals down against the leaders Liverpool to draw 2-2 at Anfield, and Newcastle beat Chelsea 2-0, with the top 5 qualifying for the Champions League next season. Only 2 points separate second-placed Arsenal and Newcastle in third ahead of their penultimate league game. That's all for Channel 2 English News. Thank you for watching.